In the heart of deep red Appalachia, a top Catholic official will soon be delivering services with a heavy Spanish accent. But Father Evelio Menjivar Ayala seems unfazed by his new job or the politics swirling around it. West Virginia is almost heaven, Menjivar told CNN. But there are many challenges that must be worked on so that the kingdom of God becomes present there.
Pope Leo XIV is marking 1 year since his historic election, making the transition from a low-profile cardinal to one of the most recognizable figures on the planet. His election led to something previously thought impossible, an American pope, but his pontificate has witnessed an historic period of tension between the White House and the Vatican, with the Augustinian friar taking office just a few months after President Donald Trump's re-election. Pakistan's climate debate is finally beginning to move beyond post-disaster calls for aid and donor conferences. Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb has implicitly acknowledged that the era when the world could be expected to step in generously after a climate disaster is effectively over. His remarks at the Breathe Pakistan Climate Conference on Wednesday were an admission that Pakistan must first demonstrate seriousness at home before looking for external help. This is a welcome shift in the official tone. Until recently, climate vulnerability was seen as a justification for external aid.
There is nothing novel about progressives in India and Pakistan advocating peace between the two countries. We have continued to swim against the hawkish tide, which insists on forever war between forever antagonistic nations. The Hawks have been winning since the outset, but after the brief military exchange of May 2025, the voices of those who invoke the shared interests of ordinary people on both sides have been almost completely drowned out. Once upon a time, the ideological battle was waged by easily identifiable segments: the professional, intelligentsia, state and corporate media, political classes, and so on. Last year's conflict clarified that social media platforms are now most important, with 1.75 billion people across both sides of the border being the central protagonists in the construction and propagation of narratives.
And a Lahore. A lawyers' convention hosted by the Lahore Bar Association, LBA, opposed the 26th and 27th constitutional amendments and warned of a possible boycott of courts over mandatory biometric verification for case filing. The convention, held at a private hotel, was presided over by LBA President Irfan Hayat Bajwa. The elected representative bars of bar associations from various districts of Punjab, along with a large number of lawyers, attended the event.
US President Donald Trump says a ceasefire is still in place between the US and Iran after both sides exchanged fire late on Thursday night. It was unclear who fired first. Iran's top military command alleged the US had targeted an Iranian oil tanker and another vessel approaching the Strait of Hormuz and carried out aerial attacks on several coastal areas.
And oil prices have jumped after clashes between the United States and Iran in the Strait of Hormuz tested their tenuous ceasefire. Futures for Brent crude rose as much as 7.5% during a volatile trading session on Thursday before easing as Asia's markets opened on Friday morning.
New York. A federal judge on Wednesday released a document described as a suicide note purportedly written by the late Jeffrey Epstein and including the line, "It is a treat to be able to choose one's time to say goodbye." Epstein, the disgraced financier and accused sex trafficker, was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell in August 2019 in what was ruled a suicide. The handwritten note was said to have been found by his former jail cellmate, convicted murderer and ex-police officer Nicholas Tartaglione.
And Karachi, the State Bank of Pakistan, SBP foreign exchange rose by $23 million to 15,050 BN for the week ending April 30, announced the central bank on Thursday. The SBP has been heavily buying dollars to bolster its reserves and meet external payments. And expert notes adoption of renewable energy reaction to rising fuel prices. panelist says after solarization, consumers not captive to grid anymore Islamabad. Solarization shielded Pakistan from the energy crisis that engulfed the globe following the US-Israel's war on Iran, energy experts said, hoping that the ongoing crunch, described by one panelist as the Black Swan event, would spur a battery storage revolution in the country. And 2 men, including a British immigration officer, were found guilty in a London court on Thursday of spying on behalf of Hong Kong and ultimately China, targeting prominent pro-democracy dissidents now based in Britain. Chung Biu Bill Yuan, 65, and Chi Leung Peter Y, 40, who worked for the UK Border Force, were convicted of assisting a foreign intelligence service by carrying out surveillance on targets between December 2023 and May 2024.
Australian police said on Friday they had charged 2 women linked to the Islamic State extremist group with slavery offences after they returned overnight from Syria, where they had been detained in a refugee camp for more than 7 years. The women, aged 53 and 31, face crimes against humanity charges, including owning and using a slave in Syria, which carry a maximum penalty of 25 years in prison. They were arrested at Melbourne Airport on Thursday upon their arrival.
And stranded at an Iranian port for nearly 10 weeks, Indian seafarer Anish has unintentionally become a first-hand witness to the Iran war. Anish arrived in the Shat Al Arab waterway on a cargo ship days before United States President Donald Trump launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28.
3 Australian women with links to the Islamic State, IS group, have been formally charged after returning home from Syria. Kausa Abbas, 53, and her daughter Zainab Ahmed, 31, will appear at Melbourne Magistrates Court on Friday, less than 24 hours after they were arrested at Melbourne Airport.
And investors could not get enough of Ramp throughout 2025, and it looks like 2026 could be another banner year of fundraising for the corporate spend management startup. The company is in talks to raise another $750 million at a pre-money valuation of more than $40 billion, sources tell the Wall Street Journal. The deal is not yet final, though, so terms could change. Ramp declined to comment.
Real Madrid's simmering tensions have spilled over, with Federico Valverde and Frenchman Aurelien Tchouameni involved in a dressing room fight, which resulted in the Uruguayan being taken to hospital with a cut head, several club sources have said. Real later confirmed that team captain Valverde, who was subsequently discharged, sustained a head injury and will be sidelined for up to 2 weeks.
And Barcelona and Real Madrid will contest the 264th El Clasico when the Spanish giants come together in a La Liga clash on Sunday. Rarely will there have been a more highly charged atmosphere, with a heavily demoralised Real arriving in the Catalan capital, facing the prospect of watching their fiercest rivals crowned champions on the day.
OpenAI said Thursday that its API will now include a number of new voice intelligence features designed to help developers create apps that can talk, transcribe, and translate conversations with users. The company's new GPT Real-Time 2 is another voice model built to create a realistic vocal simulation that can converse with users. However, unlike its predecessor, GPT Real-Time 1, this one is built with GPT-5 class reasoning that OpenAI says was created to deal with more complicated requests from users.
The Iranian military has said it retaliated against United States Navy ships after US forces targeted an oil tanker in Iran's territorial waters, a major escalation that puts further strain on the fragile truce between Washington and Tehran. Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya central headquarters added on Thursday that the US also violated the ceasefire by carrying out airstrikes on civilian areas, including Keshem Island, in cooperation with some regional countries, without identifying them.
Tennessee's Republican-dominated state legislature and governor have approved a new congressional map ahead of the U.S. midterms, carving up the state's only black majority district. The approval on Thursday culminated the latest push in states across the country to redistrict ahead of the U.S. midterms in November, which will determine which party controls the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate.
The United States Trade Court has ruled against President Donald Trump's latest 10% global tariffs, finding that across-the-board tariffs were not justified under a 1970s trade law. The US Court of International Trade ruled on Thursday in favour of small businesses that challenged the tariffs, which took effect on February 24. The ruling was 2-1, with one judge saying it was premature to grant victory to the small business plaintiffs.
And Disney senior executives could potentially combine Disney Plus with other apps like Disneyland Resort and Disney Cruise Line Navigator to make one unified app, according to a report from Bloomberg. Sources said these discussions were at an early stage, but that they are referring to this as a super app internally. And Kodiak AI stock tumbled 37% in after hours, trading Thursday after the self-driving truck startup disclosed it raised $100 million by selling shares at a steep discount, a sign that investors were willing to back the company, but not at its current market price. And the company sold shares at $6.50 each, well below its closing price of $9.10, according to a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC). And the raise also included warrants, instruments that give investors the right to buy additional shares, later a set price, in this case as low as $6.
The United States has imposed a host of new sanctions related to Cuba amid a months-long pressure campaign against the island nation. The sanctions on Thursday were announced hours after United Nations experts decried Washington's effective fuel blockade of the island as tantamount to energy starvation.
Warning. This story contains descriptions of sexual assault that some readers may find disturbing. Palestinians who were detained in Israeli prisons have revealed how they suffered dehumanizing treatment by guards and soldiers, including torture and sexual violence.
Dozens of people have been killed in attacks reportedly carried out by al-Qaeda-affiliated fighters in central Mali, the deadliest assault since armed groups launched a widespread coordinated assault late last month. According to local security and administrative sources speaking to the AFP news agency on Thursday, attacks on the villages of Korikori and Gomosagu in the Mopti region killed at least 30 people a day earlier. Three sources, including an aid worker, a diplomat and a security source, separately told the news agency Reuters that the assailants had hit two unnamed localities in Mopti, killing at least 50 on Wednesday. Democrats in the United States Senate have raised questions about the US military's potential role in establishing vast evacuation zones in Lebanon, Gaza and Iran, in a letter addressed to Brad Cooper, head of the US military's Central Command, CENTCOM. 12 legislators said mass displacement orders likely contravene international laws the United States has helped develop around humane warfare.
And United States President Donald Trump said he is giving the European Union until July 4th to comply with the proposed trade deal, or the US would increase tariffs on the bloc. Trump's announcement on Thursday follows what he referred to as a great call with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, said Tuesday that the later released 2026 Tesla Model Y is the first vehicle to meet the agency's new benchmark for advanced driver assistance systems. 4 pass-fail tests were added to the agency's safety ratings program, assessing a car's automatic emergency braking for pedestrians, blind spot warning, blind spot intervention, and lane assist, a feature that helps keep the vehicle in the lane.
On Thursday, OpenAI announced a new feature called Trusted Contact, designed to alert a trusted third party if mentions of self-harm are expressed within a conversation. The feature allows an adult ChatGPT user to designate another person as a trusted contact within their account, such as a friend or family member. In cases where a conversation may turn to self-harm, OpenAI will now encourage the user to reach out to that contact. It also sends an automated alert to the contact, encouraging them to check in with the user. OpenAI has faced a wave of lawsuits from the families of people who have committed suicide after talking with its chatbot. In a number of cases, the families say ChatGPT encouraged their loved one to kill themselves or even helped them plan it out.